Welcome to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. This podcast is dedicated to EAS employees of the U.S. Postal Service and members of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. So, pour yourself a cup of coffee and join us for today's episode. And now, here's your host, Robert Wakefield.
Happy New Year, Branch 32, and Happy New Year to all of our NAPS family across the country. Welcome to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast presented by the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. I am your host and president of Branch 32, Robert Wakefield. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please be seated. Got a great show lined up for you, so let's go ahead and pour that first cup. You know, banking should be made simple. That's why Ollie, the Nashville Post Office Credit Union's virtual assistant, is here, ready to help 24/7. Need quick answers? Ollie delivers secure, instant solutions right at your fingertips. No wait times, no hassle, just smart banking made easy. Whether you're managing your finances, exploring loan options, or just need guidance, Ollie is always ready to assist, wherever and whenever you need. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. All right, it's time for us to pour that first cup, so grab that hot cup of coffee, that cup of Joe, settle in, because today we're going to be talking about a topic that's real, it's raw, and honestly, it's probably overdue. We're talking about those moments when EAS employees, I'm talking supervisors, managers, postmasters, start thinking about walking away from the Postal Service or going back to craft or just leaving entirely, just being done is the mindset. And if you've ever had that thought, just know that you're not alone. And today's message is going to be simple. Don't quit the Postal Service. Well, that's the name of this episode. And not before we talk about why you feel that way and why your leadership still matters. Now, I wanted to talk about this because in the last, I didn't write any of this down. In the last few years, I've had more phone calls from NAPS members talking about going back to craft. Can I get back to craft? What do I need to do to get back to craft? I'm sick of being a supervisor. I don't want to do this anymore. And my answer was, I always tell them, don't quit. And my reasons are simple. First of all, you've probably been, in many cases, you've been in the Postal Service a number of years to be promoted. It's a promotion when you got an EAS job. So I say, don't quit. Bid on other positions and try other things, but don't quit. And some of them took my advice and they got other jobs and they're very happy and they're still with the Postal Service. But yet others, they said, no, I'm out. I am completely done. And we're going to talk about that today. Don't quit on the Postal Service. All right, let's be honest. The pressures on EAS employees, it's very real. The expectations are high, and many of them are unreasonable. The support that requires these expectations be carried out isn't always there. And then you have the pay structure. Well, we'll get to that. But before we talk about staying, we need to talk about the reasons why people are thinking about leaving. Because pretending everything is fine doesn't help anybody. So let's walk through the real reasons EAS employees want out. The ones you've lived, the ones you've seen, the one nobody says out loud in a stand-up talk. Let's look at some of those reasons. The first one, let's start with this one. It's a big one. Pay compression is what I like to call it. We've got supervisors that are working 10 to 12 hours a day, carrying the responsibility of an entire operation, while the carriers and the clerks they supervise are taking home more money. You feel that. Your family feels that. Your bank account definitely feels that. Let me give you an example. Let's say you work 55 hours in a week and you're a salary and you get no overtime. A carrier who works 45 hours with penalty overtime, they walk out with a bigger paycheck. Now that's not just frustrating, that's demoralizing. And it makes people say, why am I doing this? So that's a real issue, the pay compression part of it. The fact that we've got people staying from open to close and we can't even get them another day off. We have managers in my district that refuse to say, oh, it's just part of what you got to do. We're not going to give you an additional day off for that. And the other thing is this, the workload is just unrealistic. Supervisors aren't just supervising anymore. You're running operations, you're covering staffing shortages, you're answering calls, you're handling customer complaints, completing all these reports, trying to keep the morale from falling through the floor. And then you got Zoom meetings that you have to be a part of. And then any kind of decisions that you know that are great for your office, you're not allowed to make those decisions, but you have to get a blessing from your boss before you make that decision. And it wears people down. It just wears people down. Reason number 3 that people want to get out of the Postal Service or get out of EAS, there's no real work-life balance. EAS employees don't get overtime. They don't get penalty pay. They don't get, if you get done early, go home. You know what they get? Stay until the job is done. Here's an example. Your kid has a school at 6 p.m. and you plan to leave at 4, but at 3:55, a truck shows up late, a clerk calls out, and the district wants numbers. Well, guess who's missing that school event? That's the kind of thing that makes people want to rethink their whole career. And then there's also reason number 4, there's pressure from above. Supervisors are getting squeezed from both sides. Employees below and district above. An example is you're told to fix staffing, but you're not allowed to hire anyone. You're told to cut hours, but the volume is up. You're told to improve service, but the trucks are always late. It's a no-win situation. And no-win situations make people want out. So yeah, the reasons EAS employees want to leave are real. They're valid. They're understandable. But here's the part I want you to hear. You didn't step into leadership by accident. You stepped in because you have something most people don't, the ability to lead. Your presence stabilizes a building. Your voice protects your employees. Your standards keep the place running. You became an EAS employee and got that promotion because of who you are. And yes, all of the things that I listed, I wanted to list those things because there's many others I could have listed. But I wanted to list those things because those are valid reasons that I've heard people have called me and say, I want out for this, or I want out for that. I have a boss I don't get along with. Whatever you do, don't quit the Postal Service until you've talked to somebody that is a dear friend and you can trust. Take a deep breath. Remember why you stepped up. Remember the people who rely on you, who count on you. And most of all, remember the difference that you make when nobody else will say it out loud. Don't quit the Postal Service Not because it's perfect, not because it's easy, but because you matter here. All right. Well, that wraps up the first cup. Let's go ahead and pour that second cup. Big news from the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. We're now offering money market accounts. That's right. Take your savings to the next level with competitive rates and more flexibility. You can call us today or stop by the branch to learn how you can start growing your money. Your brighter financial future begins here. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. And for our second cup today, we're going to do what we try to do on the first Saturday of each month, and that looks at obscure holidays for the month of January. And I've picked two of the obscure holidays that I think you're really going to enjoy, and I hope that you'll take advantage of these fabulous days. The first one happens on January 11th, which is Step in a Puddle and Splash Your Friends Day. And then a couple of days later is National Rubber Ducky Day. So let's take a look at both of these. Let's dive in. First of all, let's look at Step in a Puddle and Splash Your Friends Day. I don't know why anybody would create a holiday like that. But I like to imagine that someone just looked outside on a gloomy January morning and said, you know what? Hold my beer. Let's go make some fun. And this day is all about letting it loose, embracing that inner kid, and remember that joy doesn't have to be complicated. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go out and soaking your friends by jumping in a puddle, unless they're game for it. But somebody came up with this day. That's January the 11th. I got nothing. But on January 13th, we have National Rubber Ducky Day, which to me is really something worth celebrating. You know, we get to celebrate that little yellow friend that's been floating around in bathtubs that I did not know this since the 1800s. And according to folks who, I don't know, who track these quirky holidays, I don't know who these people are, but this date marks the birthday of the rubber ducky as recognized by Sesame Street. You remember Ernie? He sang about the rubber ducky. You remember that? And who, let's think, who doesn't smile when you see a little rubber ducky, right? I mean, they're just so stinking cute. This day is all about happiness. It's all about being simple. Doesn't require a lot of money, doesn't require a lot of effort, but just remember that rubber duckies remind us that fun doesn't have to be fancy. And I think that's important. And here's some ways that you can celebrate by keeping a rubber ducky on your desk. I don't think that's a great idea, but this is what they suggested. Giving one to a friend. Oh, that would be fun. Or just letting yourself enjoy something that you normally would not enjoy. All right, that's going to be a couple of our obscure holidays for the month of January. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast presented by the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. Really do appreciate you listening. Now listen, you got to tell me where you're from. You got to send me a message. I want to hear from you. Tell me what branch you're from. I really would appreciate hearing that. And you can go to our chat feature located at napsbranch32.org. Right when you get to the homepage, you'll see it to the bottom right. You can actually send us a message. I'll get that. I'm the only one that gets that. And we can discuss things there. So thanks so much for checking that out as well. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, every great weekend starts with a great cup of Joe. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. Please note that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Robert Wakefield and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. We welcome your questions and comments, so send those to SaturdayCupofJoe at gmail.com.